So, not at all surprisingly, people all the time ask me, how did you do it? How have you lost all this weight? What's the secret? And of course, there aren't any secrets. It's about consistency and following a plan. There's not one right answer. But there are some things that, in my case, I think have really been hugely successful and part of the transformation, and things now that are not just something I'll go through and then I'll be done with, but part of my life now. Um, One of those is bike riding. And I want to mention this because I live in an area, Marin County, it's the mountain biking birthplace. And we have so many bike riders here, road, mountain, everything. People are serious about it. And when you are a heavy person, getting on a bike is awkward. Um, I did a couple rides with my husband, who's a really passionate rider, charity rides, and I was so when I was 275, 300 pounds, I was so uncomfortable with how I looked on a bike, and I actually had a little kind of a fake license plate frame made that said it looks smaller on my horse. Because I wanted to kind of get out there ahead of time, like I realize I got a giant ass and it's sitting on this little tiny bike seat, and just make fun of myself, as often heavy people do, before I could worry about someone else doing it. Um, and very short rides. And ironically, I kept looking for bigger and bigger bike seats because my tailbone hurt so much when I was riding my bike. Yes, my legs got tired. I was, huffing and puffing. But the worst thing was I just could not sit. And so I was hilarious. I ended up with something from Canada that was like this deep and springy and, engineering. It looked like you could launch it into space. And my tailbone still hurt. And bikes that can take you when you're 275, 300 pounds are not particularly light. They're not particularly nimble, easy to ride. They don't often have a whole bunch of gears to make riding easier. So it's hard. It's hard to get riding on a bike. But bike riding is so good for you, even short distances. I mean, most of us that have been really heavy, our knees are shot. Whether or not it's permanent, we'll see. But, your knees hurt. So what I did as part of my journey was I told myself when I got to 250 pounds, so I'd lost the first, 60-ish pounds, that I was going to get myself a really nice bike. And so I had gone out and started looking around. And what I found was, first of all, most bike manufacturers won't talk about weight limits. But I can tell you that they would all kind of cringe a little bit and get a little nervous when you talk about putting 250 pounds on carbon. Carbon, do you have to have carbon? No. Do they make absolutely fantastic aluminum frames these days? Yes. Is it a little heavier? Yes. So I didn't need carbon. That wasn't a prerequisite. But what I did want was a bike that was pretty light and nimble, that I wasn't worried, would would crush. It would, fall apart underneath me. And so I was looking around, and I got closer and I got closer, and I got to this point where, I'm here, I'm ready to buy. And I couldn't quite find anything. And for whatever reason, I was stuck. I was looking on like ladies models, Trek, Cannondale, and some others, which, fabulous bikes, specialized. And our local bike shop, Sunshine Bikes in Fairfax, which is wonderful, encouraged me to look at the Ibis Hakalugi, which is a cyclocross bike, right? So it's kind of a road bike frame. And this one is carbon. But it's just a little beefier, a little, cyclocross is a little bit, what is it, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. It's got a little bit more going on. So it's just a little heavier duty. And, do they make a woman's model? No. Did one of the guys there that's a really great fitter take time to make sure that we could do as many adjustments so that it was good for my woman's frame? Yes. So I got this bike. I was still 250 pounds, and by the way, I'm 5'4", so still a heffalump. And I started riding, and I think the first ride I did 3 miles, and I was already feeling better. Like 3 miles, 50 pounds before that would have been impossible. No way. So I was already feeling so much better, and then soon it was 6 or 7 miles, and my son and I found a loop that I think is 7 or 8 miles. And I started calling it his Jelly Belly Run because he was 9. If he went with me, he would get some Jelly Bellies. Um, and I just kept riding a little bit more and a little bit more. And here's the funny thing. I was so worried because I'd been on all these giant bike seats and my tailbone hurt so much. I thought I'm never going to be able to really ride a bike. I'm sure the weight loss, let's be real, had part of it, but for whatever reason, when I got on a properly fitted bike, and a light bike, one that, again, very nimble and agile, um, the pain went away. Long rides, as I started doing them, did my butt hurt after a while? Yeah, hello, so does everybody's until they're doing it all the time. But it was amazing. I mean, that just was no longer an issue. So what happened? I was going around. Did I still feel self-conscious at 250 pounds? Yes, especially where I live. Again, all these people are like, these men are 6 feet tall and probably weigh 140 pounds dripping wet. I mean, their thighs are tiny little things, really muscly, but just lean is all around, and these people are in serious shape. So it was daunting. It was embarrassing. I would occasionally have somebody being very nice, shouting encouragement like, keep it up, nice job. And on the one hand, thank you, that's so sweet. And on the other hand, kill me now because it's just cringeworthy. Just, it's a little embarrassing. I have mixed feelings about that kind of support, as you can tell. But I just kept doing a little bit at a time. And so that was March of 2013. And so... I was doing this with my kids. My daughter, this was going to be the only way she got a cell phone. And my son, we had a whole bunch of other more age-appropriate incentives. So the kids were riding with me. I was doing all flat work, I'll be honest, because going uphill is hard enough. Taking weight uphill is really hard. So if people are starting riding, I would, don't make things harder for yourself. Stay flat as much as you can. But we kept at it and just kept riding a little bit more, or a lot of times we wouldn't go any further. We would just do it, we did it today and we do it tomorrow and maybe take a break and then another couple days. And we just spent, time on the bike. We weren't going fast. I mean, God, the first couple months, I think our average speed was 10 miles an hour, which if you're flat and on pretty decent bikes is not fast. But by May, so we started in March. By May, my son and I had done our first 100 miles. It took all day, like literally. We started when it was dark and ended when it was dark. We did a event called 100 Miles of Nowhere. So we went on a 1 mile path back and forth, back and forth. But we rode 100 miles. I mean, and then in June, a month later roughly, we did the Livestrong Davis event in June of 2013, and we rode 100 miles as a family with a little bit of climbing. I think there's about 1,200 feet of elevation, and it took us a long time. Also, not as long as that first 100 miler, but we did it. And I think then from there, everybody starts thinking, oh, you have to go further and faster, and you have to do a whole bunch of other things. And I'm here to tell you, you don't. And in fact, you know what? You don't have to do a century. You don't have to do a metric century. What you have to do, if you're someone who's looking for a healthy exercise that's actually pretty fun, is great for your knees, is great for the rest of your body, especially if you ride right, it's really good for the core, it is just ride. Go out and ride 3 miles, ride 5 miles, ride 10 miles. Keep it flat. You don't want to climb because it's too hard. Don't climb. And don't worry about the speed. If you're going out there consistently and doing some mileage, you're still riding more than most people are doing. And it's just about having fun and feeling good. So, for me, I'm sure there are other bikes out there, but, God bless the people at Ibis, because I don't think if they had made such an awesome bike that I would be riding as much as I am and loving it. And again, I'm if you look at my Strava, it's nothing crazy, um, but it's completely different than who I used to be. My health is, the numbers are just so different than they used to be all across the board. Blood work, you know, BMI, everything. It's just a completely different situation. So go out there and ride. Find a bike you like, um, and ride. Ride a little bit every day, or ride a little bit more 2 or 3 times a week. But just ride.